currently lives in
This
Hartford.
meeting is being recorded.
Okay, thank you, Laszlo.
Yeah.
As I said, he currently lives in Hartford, and he basically helps people understand their cameras and the editing software and puts it in simple terms and makes it simple for us. So that's why we keep inviting him back. And he wants to help help us by um, helping us to produce the very best pictures we can, so that we have pictures that we are proud to show. So without further ado, I'm going to let Bert take over, and there you go, Bert.
Okay, thank you, Don. Uh, Don, you're going to be receiving an email with a link to the PDF to the slides from tonight. So feel free to distribute the PDF to everybody, to your members.
Yeah, that's always great when you do that. Thank you. I will do that.
Okay, so
Oh, let me mention one more thing, if I
Yep.
could. If everybody could put themselves on mute unless you want to ask a question, because then we won't get a bunch of background noise when Bert is speaking. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so the presentation tonight is keeping your photography fresh. And fresh is the key word. And I hope to be giving you some ideas for fresh photography. I'm going to keep it light. The illustration here is kind of an example of what's to come. They're going to be lighthearted, and I'm going to try and keep the whole presentation light. But I'm going to present a whole bunch of techniques and ideas that you may or may not have thought of before, but give them a thought, and I'm going to show you some special techniques that I use. And let's go. So most of the images, or all the images in the presentation, were created in Midjourney. I created them in a Midjourney AI, including this image of myself. They were all created with Midjourney. Basically, I started in photography at a very young age. I got my first Brownie camera at 8 years old, and I apprenticed with a professional photographer. I sold my first image when I was 12. I used to photograph firemen parades, built my own darkroom using a slide viewer as an enlarger. Graduated Northeastern University, done part-time professional photography my whole life, basically. And I've been teaching ever since college. These are the workshops I teach. I'm teaching a public workshop on November 9th on the art of seeing in visualization. And I also do private training. My contact information, and you'll have a PDF with all of this. So this was inspired by my own personal Groundhog Day story, Bill Murray version. It's basically all about my photography stagnation and evolution over and over again. It's not that I get tired with photography, but every so often I get to a point where I crave something new, and I keep trying new stuff. And this has happened to me many, many times. So we'll talk about what the signs of stagnation are, what the cure is, which is evolution, the obstacles to evolution, why freshness matters. We'll talk about shooting new subjects and using new techniques, things to think about, places to get inspiration, and the importance of feedback. Thomas Jefferson said, if you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done. Really interesting. It has a lot of meaning in what we're going to do tonight, because maybe you're going to start shooting something you've never shot before. Use a technique you've never used. Maybe shoot a subject you've never shot. So what are the signs your photography may be stagnating? Well, your photography may be stagnating if you get frustrated with your images. You don't get the enjoyment you used to get from photography. You find yourself always taking similar shots. or you become too comfortable with a particular style or technique. When you constantly shoot the same subject or genre, you're limiting your range of expression. Your images become predictable. I will bet I think you guys have a competition. In your competitions, I will bet that when you guys look at somebody's picture, you go, oh, that's so-and-so's picture. That's a sign of predictability. When you shoot the same subject or genre, you're missing out on all kinds of opportunities. So burnout is a way of saying it's time to try something new. Neil Donald Walsh said, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Sometimes you have to try something new that you maybe are a little uncomfortable with. And this is how we learn in photography or in life. We do things that we're uncomfortable with, we make mistakes, and we learn from those mistakes. Evolution is the cure. To evolve, we need to experiment and we need to learn. Experimentation challenges your creativity. You can try new subjects, use techniques you've never tried before, new compositions, break the normal rules of composition, break that rule of thirds. It's not always appropriate. Try shooting without using the rule of thirds. Experiment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Take new workshops in our classes. Study images from photographers you admire. This is probably one of the best things you can do to learn photography. And certainly be open to constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is going to be one of your best tools. So, when you get out of your comfort zone, you expand your skills and you're creating more diverse images. It builds confidence, fosters creativity, and you become more fulfilled as a photographer. In short, you want to become a Renaissance photographer. A Renaissance photographer is a photographer who is proficient in a wide range of photographic genres and techniques. So what are the obstacles to evolving? Well, the biggest one is a closed mind. If you don't try, you'll never learn. Self-doubt, creative block. But the biggest obstacle may be fear of failing. But this is exactly the one that shouldn't be your biggest obstacle. The secret to good photography is failure and what you learn from it. Albert Einstein said, failure is success in progress. We need to fail. And the more you fail, the better you're going to become. So freshness matters. Variety in photography is the spice of photography. By creating a variety of different images, you become more engaged. It keeps your images fresh. It keeps your viewers engaged, and it keeps you engaged. Variety is definitely going to improve your observation skills, which is one of the most important skills you have in photography. So maybe it's time to get out of your comfort zone. So let's talk about some new subjects. What can you shoot? Well, your studio does await you. You have a studio. You may not realize it, but you have one. Your kitchen studio, kitchen table, that is. We all have a kitchen table. And one of the things that the pandemic taught us was that we had to find new avenues of shooting. When the pandemic hit, we couldn't travel. We couldn't do our normal photography. We couldn't get together with people. So we had to find something new. And the kitchen table studio became it for me. Try tabletop still life photography. You can do all kinds of things on your kitchen table. Just using things in your kitchen. You don't have to go far. Experiment with all kinds of props that you find in your kitchen and play around with lighting. I'm going to show you some easy ways to light your subjects. For indoor shots, I like to use black backgrounds. So what I did is I took a large piece of cardboard. I took some spray paint that I got on Amazon, and voila, you have yourself a black background. Really easy and really cheap. If I want a base, I create another piece of cardboard, or I use actually I have a piece of black cloth that I use sometimes for a base. But I like black. Black is a great color to use for your background because if you decide in post-processing, it's easy to extract your subject and change the background. You can put whatever background you want. For lighting, these are the lights that I use. These lights are really inexpensive. This 2-pack comes out to $37. And they come with 2 little tripods. There's actually 2 versions of this on Amazon. One is a little cheaper than this, and it has a little shorter tripod. But they both are really, really great. These are dimmable LED panel lights, and they're dirt cheap, and you just need a 5-volt USB adapter to power them. Or you can use little LED flashlights. Those work really well too. Again, finding stuff in your kitchen, all kinds of stuff that you have that you can use as props. Just a slice of a lemon or any fruit makes an interesting subject. An avocado. Now, this is actually a composite of multiple images, and I'm going to show you how I did it. It's actually really simple. The first image I took was of an avocado, and I took this. I didn't really care what the background was because my goal was to extract it. And what I did is I took that and I extracted it from the background and I blurred it, because this was going to be in the background of my image. I wanted it blurred. I then took a picture of a cut avocado. Again, I extracted it. So I just had the image that you see here. And then I combine these two with a black background in Photoshop to create the composite image. Now, I could have taken it with the avocado in the background, but I would have needed a larger kitchen table, probably. I probably couldn't have got the background far enough back, and I wouldn't have had a nice black surface underneath these. So by extracting them and putting a black background behind them, I solved several problems. Made it real easy. I did the same thing with a peach, except in this case, the peach flesh was a little too orange. So the flesh in here was very orange, and it really blended in with the pit, and you couldn't see the pit as well. So I just desaturated it in Photoshop. And this is, again, a composite, 2 images, image of a whole peach and an image of half a peach. In this case, I took a wine glass, turned it upside down in my sink, put a strawberry on top, turned the sprayer on in my sink, put a black background behind it, and I used a speed light to light it. That's it. It was really, really simple. A chess set. You may have one of these in your house. This is something we got years ago in Mexico. Never played on it. I don't really play chess, but thought it made a neat image. And this was lit two ways. There's lighting behind the chess pieces to give a forward shadow, and there's light in front to light up the pieces. And this was shot focus stacked. We'll talk a little more about focus stacking a little bit later. Macro and close-ups, really easy to do. When you shoot macro and close-up, you see a whole world that you've never seen before. It's a wonderful form of photography. If you've never done it, you need to try. You don't need any special equipment. That's the great thing about macro. Some lenses are designed to shoot macro. So, for instance, you could go out and buy a macro lens, which is designed typically to shoot a 1-to-1 reproduction ratio or greater. And basically what that means is that the object that you're shooting comes out full size on your sensor. So if you were to take a picture of a penny, the penny would be a full size penny on your sensor. That's a 1-to-1 reproduction ratio. 2-to-1 means this penny would be twice as big, which wouldn't fit on your sensor. But some lenses are designed to take macro images. A macro or a micro, as Nikon likes to call it, lens is typically a 1-to-1 reproduction ratio or better. But you can also shoot, the macro lenses tend to be expensive. You can also shoot with very inexpensive lenses. If you get a set of extension tubes are relatively inexpensive. For about $79, you can get a set of these, and you can attach it to a very inexpensive lens. You can also get close-up filters, which are a lot less expensive, but they're not quite as good as extension tubes. Extension tubes are really good for macro photography. So if you were to take a 50 millimeter lens, which is probably the most common lens in photography, you probably already have one. And if you don't, they're really inexpensive. In this case, I took my 50 millimeter lens. I took one of these extension tubes. You can use 1, 2, or all 3 in any combination. And all they are hollow tubes that extend the lens from your camera. And by extending the lens from the camera, you're basically magnifying. So in this case, I have 2 of them. I have the 20 millimeter tube attached to the body of the camera. Then I have the 36 millimeter, and then I have the 50 millimeter lens. And this is the image that this setup took. And you can see that the quality is quite good. This is an old 50 millimeter lens that I had. Haven't used it in years, but it takes great macro shots. And this is the exact image that this setup took. And all it was lit, in this case, I just lit it by a desk lamp. Nothing fancy. In this case, I turned it over, the quarter over, and I shot the back of the quarter using the same setup, shooting straight down on it. And you can see that the quality is amazing. And you get a really amazing quality. So a 50 millimeter lens you could probably pick up for $150 if you don't already own one. The extension tubes are about $79. And it's a modest investment, and you have a whole world of photography that opens up to you. This is a set of extension tubes for Nikon. They have them for every camera manufacturer. And these basically go for $79. The macro lenses, which screw onto your lens as a filter on the filter ring, basically are much less expensive, but they aren't quite as good quality-wise. You can also use something called a macro reverse mount adapter. These things are really weird. It's just a little adapter that fits on your body, and the other side fits on the filter ring of your lens. So basically what you do is you take your lens and you turn it around and you mount it backwards. And basically this is what it might look like. And this allows you to focus a lot closer as well. I've never used one myself, so I can't really comment on how well they work. But they're cheap, $12.95. You can take all kinds of subjects literally on your kitchen table. All of these images, or most of these images I'm going to show you, were taken on my kitchen table. This is a lily plant. The lily was on its last legs, and I kind of like the way the lily was curling around. And basically, this is just a close-up shot of the lily that was on my kitchen table. Again, the background is a black piece of cardboard. An apple. Sprayed the apple with some water. When you take a close-up of it, it takes on a whole new perspective. This one wasn't shot on my kitchen table. This was shot at a garden, but again, it's a close-up. This was shot on my kitchen table. Just a close-up of a flower. If you haven't shot in your neighborhood, there's lots you can shoot in your neighborhood. You don't have to go very far. Have you ever shot in the rain? Most of us have probably never shot in the rain. But one day I decided to go out. It was raining. It was kind of misting, actually. And this was a branch of a red maple tree that's in my yard. And you can actually see my neighbor's house in the raindrops. And a close-up of raindrops make a rather interesting image. You don't have to go far. I literally took this in my driveway. Street fairs, wonderful things to take pictures at. If you're not a street photographer, try it. Street photography is a lot of fun, and especially in a street fair. So most all the towns, at least in the summer, spring and fall, have street fairs. You can go to them and find all kinds of subjects to shoot. Wildlife. You have wildlife right in your backyard. This is a baby squirrel. I don't often see baby squirrels, but this guy was kind of curious about me. I was curious about him, and I took his picture. The lowly robin makes a great subject. They're really pretty when you study them. You get to study them up close like this. Reflections. You can find reflections all kinds of places, ponds, streams, the ocean. You guys have some lakes near you. They make for some great reflections, especially in the fall. Next couple of weeks, we're going to have prime foliage. Great time to shoot reflections of foliage. Reflections of seagulls. Insects. Close-up images of insects are great to take. This is a green metallic bee, and I've actually taken several pictures of green metallic bees. There aren't a lot of them around, it seems, but every so often I find one, and I love shooting these guys because they have such interesting color. Sunrises and sunsets. Sunrises and sets every day. We don't always have a good sunrise or sunset, especially here in New England. It's often very cloudy, and we typically don't get much color. But the more you go out, the more you're going to find. And sometimes you just have to shoot a lot of them. Go out and take a lot of them before you get some good ones. But it's worth it. And the blue hour is another time to shoot. And this is one of my favorite times. When you shoot a sunset, what's amazing to me is that I will be somewhere and I will shoot sunset. For instance, this was taken in Elizabeth Park in Hartford, and shooting towards Hartford. And it's kind of a little slight elevation there. You're on a little hill. And everybody goes there to shoot the sunset. or the sunrise rather. Actually, shooting the sunrise here because the sun rises in the east and this is facing east. And they leave as soon as the sun comes up or as soon as the sun sets. Well, after the sun sets, about maybe a half hour after, is what's called the blue hour. It's when the sun is about 6 degrees below the horizon. And when the sun is about 6 degrees below the horizon, we get the blue look. We get these blue cool tones and these warm tones all at the same time. And the blue hour is a phenomenal time to shoot. It happens before sunrise and after sunset. So once the sun sets, don't leave. Wait around. Sometimes it's the best shot you're going to get. Find local sporting events. There's all kinds of sporting events, especially this time of year. You can find football games. Local football games offer all kinds of opportunities for photography. You can photograph the pig pile at a football game. Or you can photograph a local hockey game. This is not a professional game. This was a bunch of a local hockey league actually playing in the Civic Center. But it's just a local hockey league, and you could go in and shoot this without any problems. You could go down to the booth with a professional photographer shoot, and you can aim your camera through this little window they have, and you have the ability to take some really interesting pictures. And you can shoot the pig pile at a hockey game. Not sure what happened here. Rodeos, fantastic places to shoot. You can typically shoot with a 200 millimeter lens right from the stands, assuming you're reasonably close. You don't have to get too close. It's incredibly easy to shoot rodeos, all kinds of opportunities. We don't have a lot of rodeos here in New England, but if you're traveling, look around for a rodeo. Horse shows are another thing. We do have a lot of horse shows here in New England. We have a ton of horse shows, actually. And all you have to do is look up on the web, do a search, and you're going to find all kinds of horse shows. They're usually easy to photograph. You can usually walk around wherever you want outside the corrals, and you can shoot. I actually shot at this particular horse show with several lenses. Some of the shots I took with a 20 millimeter lens of horses jumping. You were able to get that close to where they're jumping. So horse shows are a great place to expand your subjects for your photography. In this case, the horse was posing, not the girl. The horse really knew it was being photographed. Shoot at night. Night photography is a phenomenal way to extend your photography into a new genre. It's an amazing thing to do. You're not going to get images like this locally. You know, you're going to need to go somewhere dark. This was taken in Nevada at a ghost town. But you can take some incredible pictures at night. Takes a little research. You can't shoot the Milky Way just any time. You have to shoot at certain times of the year and at certain times of the day, night. But there are programs out there on the web that will tell you exactly when to shoot. And night photography is a phenomenal way to extend your photography. Your camera can see a lot more at night than you can. So you're going to capture more than your eyes can actually see. We have I don't know if we have a full moon. I think it's very soon. There's a supermoon, actually. I'm not sure if it's tonight or tomorrow or was last night. But shooting this moon rising is a lot of fun. You can get that really big chunk of cheese In this case, you can see it has this nice yellow color because of the atmospheric haze when the moon is low on the horizon. So as it's rising, it actually looks bigger. It's being magnified like a magnifying glass by the horizon, by the atmosphere, and it gains color. Sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's orange. It can be various colors, but we get some really, really interesting pictures of the rising moon. If you go to the band where you can see the aurora, and as somebody said earlier, we obviously had one the other night, a couple of nights ago. I didn't see it. I didn't go out. But the aurora is a lot of fun to shoot if you can go to a place where you can typically see the aurora. Typically, we don't see it here in New England. You need to be up in a more northerly band. There's actually a band. You could actually go too far north and not see the aurora. You actually can't go all the way north. You have to. There's a band that is, well, it's kind of hard to describe, but it varies in size based on the K parameter and the radiation that's coming from the sun and solar flares. And right now we're at the peak of the 11-year solar cycle. So right now, auroras are much more common. You might be able to go up to New Hampshire or Vermont or Maine and see them more regularly this time of year. This was taken in the blue hour. This is actually the moon rising, but it's really more of a picture of the city of Hartford taken from East Hartford across the Connecticut River. But blue hour photography can be a lot of fun. You get some really interesting images. Night photography in the winter. There's all kinds of interesting snow scenes you can take at night. Go to a local park that has some kind of event going on. It'll be lit up. There'll be people. There's always stuff to see, especially with holiday lights. When you travel, night photography is something you may never have thought of, but there's lots of stuff you can shoot at night when you're traveling. This was taken from a hotel window in Boston, and right through the window. It was probably a 10-second exposure. I kind of propped my camera up on a pillow on the windowsill. I basically covered the lens so I wouldn't get any reflection off the glass, and if I did get any reflection, I just fixed it up in Photoshop. But you can take all kinds of interesting night pictures when you're traveling. Abstract photography is another way you can extend your genre of photography shooting. Abstract images are a lot of fun. If you typically don't look for them, you won't see them. You actually have to look for them. So in this case, this was taken actually of the Connecticut River in the wintertime. I was actually out shooting a rising moon, and the moon hadn't risen yet. And it was just before sunset. And I was looking out on the river, and I saw these interesting patterns. And the patterns interested me, so I shot it. Reflections, abstract reflections can be really, really interesting. Beach sand or sand anywhere can be interesting. This is sand on a beach, and I just like the patterns. In this case, it actually was taken on the same beach, and when I took this, I didn't even see the dolphin. And if you look in there, you can actually see a dolphin. But I just like the colors and the textures and the lines. They interested me. Raindrops on glass. Incredibly simple, just abstract. You can find abstract images to take in nature. One of the things that you can do, and your club may already do this, is create your own list of images to take. Things you want to challenge yourself with, things that you may not even enjoy doing, but you want to push yourself. Remember, if you want to achieve something you've never achieved, then you have to do something you've never done. Create a monthly challenge for yourself, different kinds of images. When it comes to techniques, there's all kinds of techniques in photography. One of the things that separates a photograph from a piece of art is the technique. Technique is probably the most important thing we have in shooting our images with a camera. Changing your perspective is a really easy technique to do. And when you change your perspective, you completely change the viewer's outlook on an image. If this image was taken eye level, it would be boring. If it's taken from ground level, we have a completely different look, something we typically don't see, and it intrigues people. It's an intriguing way to view an image. Try different angles. This is a view of this very interesting road, and this is this exact same road from a different angle. Each image has a completely different look. These images were taken minutes apart, maybe 15 minutes apart, but they have a completely different look based on the angle and the perspective we took. Shooting wildlife, you may already know this, but you always want to get down to eye level with your subject. One of the techniques I have when I shoot wildlife like this is, even though my camera has an articulating LCD on the back of it, I could put my camera down on the ground. I could turn the LCD up so I can view it, go into live view mode, or in a mirrorless camera, it's already in live view mode. I can look at it, just press the shutter when I want to take the picture. However, I don't even do that. I don't even look through my camera. I don't use live view. I don't use the LCD. I just, in this image right here, I put the camera way down to the ground. I do not get on my belly anymore. I used to. I don't do that anymore. And I basically use the center focus point. I use back button focus. I focus and I take the picture. And I look at it, and if I didn't aim it just right, then I do it again, aim it a little differently. Or I may just take 2, 3, 4 pictures in a row, aiming differently because I don't know what I'm taking. I'm not even looking at what I'm taking. But this technique works really well, and it's so easy. You don't have to think about it. And that's one of the things I like about photography is you can do things in photography that are simple. You don't have to make it complicated. Looking up. When you look up, you see something completely different. Very few people ever look straight up. When you take a picture, when you're looking straight up, you have a completely different perspective. This was taken in the New Mexico state capitol. They have a dome there, but it's not a big dome. And the room you walk through to where this dome is doesn't even look like a dome room. It just looks like you're walking. You never know what was above you. Most of the people I saw that day, nobody ever looked up until they saw me photographing it. Then they started looking at it. But typically people just don't look up. Focus stacking is one of the aspects of photography that I've been doing since the early 2002, I think I started doing focus stacking. And it's probably one of the most incredible techniques you could ever use in photography. If you've never done it, I'm going to show you how to do it. You can do it tomorrow. It's easy. There's nothing to it. It's really, really simple. The way focus stacking works is we're combining multiple images, each focused at a different point. So when you do that, we're going to combine each focused image into one single image, which will give us a incredibly extended depth of field. We don't have to worry about depth of field anymore. We can have anything we want in focus. So what we do is we take, maybe the first image is focused here. This is right down here. We focus at the very closest point on a subject that we want to have in focus. Then we focus a little further in. Take another picture. Focus a little further in. Take another picture. Do it again. And we keep doing this until we get to the point where the last point we want to have in focus is taken. So we may be taking 20 images here. We could take anywhere from 2 to 50 images or more. On really, really extreme macro images, I've shot as many as 250 images, but that's rare. For landscape images, we typically shoot 2 or 3, and you rarely need more than that. But this image may have required 15 or 20 images. If you look at this image at the bottom left, you see 2 images. They're cycling back and forth. In one of them, the mountain is in focus. In one of the images, the mountain is not in focus. When the mountain is not in focus, the foreground is in focus. And when the mountain is in focus, the foreground isn't. I took 2 images. These are the 2 images. They were handheld. One of them I focused on the tree on the left. One I focused on the mountain. And when I combine these to create one focus stacked image, this is what I get. Where pretty much everything is in focus. And you see, I shot this handheld. I didn't have a tripod. And the images obviously weren't aligned. They're close, but they weren't aligned. The software will align it, and they will combine the images for you. In the software, all you need is Adobe Photoshop. So the way it works in Photoshop is we place each image on a separate layer. And in the layers panel, we select all the layers. So we click on one layer, we hold the shift key down, click on the last layer. And, if we had more than 2 layers, we'd select them all. And then in the edit menu, you choose auto align layers. And you choose auto right here. And you hit OK. That aligns them. Now we have our images are aligned. But now we need to blend them, so we take the sharpest parts of each image. And we do that from the edit menu, we choose auto blend layers, and we choose stack images. And you can check both of these off in Photoshop and hit OK. And that's it. That is the entire process. It is not complicated, easy to do. As I said, you can go out tomorrow, shoot some landscape images, shoot a couple of focus at different places in the landscape, something up close, maybe something further away, and you can create a focus stacked image this simply. When you focus stack, you get incredible sharpness. You typically want to shoot at 2 to 3 stops from wide open, which is typically your lens's sweet spot, where it takes the sharpest images. One of the things that is a misnomer is f16 or f22 is not the sharpest image you're going to take. F16 or f22 will give you the most depth of field, but it will take the least sharp image your camera is capable of. As you deviate from, let's say, 2 to 3 stops from wide open, in other words, if you have an f2.8 lens, f2.8 to f4 to f5.6, that's 2 stops. f8 is 3 stops. Your best images will be shot between 5, 6, and 8. As you deviate from that, either go wider or smaller, you'll take less sharp images. And that's due to something called diffraction. But focus stacked images, if you're shooting with your lens's sweet spot, you're going to get incredibly sharp images. All of these were shot on my kitchen table. I love going out to Whole Foods, seeing what flowers they have, find one I like, I want to photograph and bring it home. You can shoot any kind of object focus stacked. It's a geode. And one day I just decided I'm going to go in my desk drawer and see what I can find to photograph. And I came up with a hose clamp, a 1-inch hose clamp. And it takes on a whole new meaning when you see it focus stacked, as sharp as this. Or a simple fuse. Or a strawberry. Focus stacking is one of the simplest things you can do. Many cameras today, the newer cameras, will have automatic image stacking built into them. So you can just set your camera up, you focus on the closest spot, you tell it how many images you want to take, what the focus width is, how much space between each shot you want to focus on, and they do it automatically. And it's just a matter of bringing it to Photoshop and stacking them. You can also use programs like Helicon Focus. I use Helicon Focus a lot. I really like Helicon Focus. There's also Zarine Stacker, and I think Luminar Neo has a focus stacking feature built into it now. So now we get into something a little more unique. We're kind of combining changing subjects and genres, subjects and technique, excuse me. So we take an image like this. These are eyeballs. You can see an eyeball in every single droplet. Every droplet has an eyeball looking at you. And if you look behind these droplets, you see a big eyeball. This is how I shoot it. It's very, very simple. And you can do this with just common household items. Number one is I get about 10 inches of books. And on top of those books, I stack a sheet of glass. Typically, it's an 8x10 sheet of glass from a frame. That's typically what I use. And it works best if you can treat it with Rain-X. Rain-X will make the water droplets bead up really well. And you don't need to do that, but it just works a little better with that. You'll get bigger droplets. And then I put an image underneath the glass. The image can be anything. And you'll see, I'll show you a couple more examples in a second. But you can put, in this case, I put an eyeball image. I basically just found an eyeball on image on the web. I printed it, put it under there, and we want it to be about 10 inches away because, number one, we're going to be shooting down, and we don't want this eyeball to be sharp. We want it to be blurred. So we want it to be a little distance away from the glass. And then I light it with an LED flashlight, just a simple LED flashlight. I shine it only on the image. You don't want the light to go on the glass. You just want it to be on the image. And I've got my camera on a tripod shooting straight down. I spray the surface of the glass with water. That's it. That's it. And whatever you shoot is going to be upside down. So this eyeball is symmetrical. So you can't tell it's upside down. In the next image, you'll see what I mean by that. But every single droplet is going to show whatever the image you had at the underneath is. This is my Valentine's version. You can see the water droplets are a lot bigger here. I probably used Rain-X here, and I may not have used it in the last one. But you can see how the heart, that was the image I used at the bottom, was just a heart. You can see it's upside down from the reflected images. But every single water droplet has a heart in it, even the tiniest little ones in there. That's not one of my better ones. This was a cherry tomato, or a grape tomato. I put underneath. But you can literally put anything you want and you'll get something interesting. And then we get to a little more creative and a little more work. Anybody want to guess what this is?
Is it a bubble?
Washing up with water or soap suds?
Yeah. Somebody said bubble, soap suds. That's exactly what this is. Yeah. Soap suds or bubbles, soap bubbles, have incredible color in them. They're amazing when you get really, really close to them. The color is constantly changing. And when I say constantly, your exposure has to be relatively short, because if you do a long exposure, it will just be a blur of color. The colors are constantly changing in soap bubbles. Basically, I'll show you the setup I used to take these, but these were all shot literally on my kitchen table. And here's how I did it. I basically used a lens cap, a back lens cap, rear lens cap. I filled it with water. I put a few drops of soap suds and a little bit of liquid glycerin. And the liquid glycerin helps so that the bubbles don't burst too quickly. You want the bubble to last, and the glycerin actually helps with that. And just use your finger and splash around a little bit, and you'll create the bubbles. And that's all you need. Just like this, what you see here. This is the setup. As I said, it's a little more complicated. What I have is a translucent disc. This disc actually looks solid white here. It's not. It's translucent. So I have two speed lights set up, and basically they're illuminated. You can use any illumination you want. I use speed lights because I knew I wanted a relatively short exposure, and I didn't have any really bright lights to do that. But you need something to diffuse the light. Something has to diffuse the light. So this translucent disc worked out really well. You can see my camera on a tripod, and basically I have my black cardboard right here as a background. And underneath, this is what it looks like. I basically had this box here holding up the translucent disc. The box was right here underneath, holding it up on that side. And my lens was actually holding it up here. And I probably had something off in the corner here holding it up. But I kept the translucent disc very close to it. Basically, the translucent disc is right here. You can kind of see that black right there. And there's my soap bubbles, and here's my lens. So aimed at there. And I was shooting this with a 105 macro lens. Another thing you can do is you can shoot with a glass sphere. Glass sphere is a lot of fun to shoot with. You can buy these for literally $10 on Amazon, and you can do all kinds of things with these. Take some really creative images. So when we look at this, what happens is we end up getting an image in the glass sphere of whatever's behind it, but the image is going to be upside down, just like the soap, just like those water droplets. They're going to reflect upside down. So I had my glass sphere on top of a light stand, and I was shooting this winter scene, and you can see how the entire scene, kind of like if you were shooting with a 7mm lens, is in that glass globe, in that little sphere. And basically what I did is I took that sphere, I extracted it, turned it right side up. This is these two are different scenes, as you can see. They're not exactly the same scene. And then what I did was I took a picture of myself in my living room with a hat on, holding my hands out, and I created this image. And the image in the background is actually the image that's in the sphere. I had shot that without the sphere, and then I blurred it in this composite. So you can do some really, really interesting things with these glass spheres. This is in Simsbury, Connecticut. This is the Simsbury, they call it the Flower Bridge. In the summertime, there's all kinds of flowers there. In the wintertime, they have all kinds of fake flowers. But you can see how the kind of image it takes. You can get some really, really creative images shot with these glass spheres. Another thing you can do is you can shoot oil and water. And when we say oil, we mean just like a few drops of olive oil or whatever cooking oil you happen to have in the kitchen. Put a few drops in some water. And basically what I did is I printed a color swatch and put it underneath it. And I'll show you how I set this up in a second. The color swatch looks like this. This is what I printed on my printer and just created that in Photoshop. And basically this is the setup that I used. It's a little confusing to see, but I'm going to explain it here. This is one of my LED panel lights. That's all I use to light it. This is a large glass bowl. It's a mixing bowl, a glass mixing bowl. I turned it upside down, and the whole purpose of the mixing bowl was to take this smaller cup with the water and oil in it and move it away from this color swatch because I wanted to blur the color swatch. And then I have this little cup. I filled it with water and a few drops of olive oil, and I splashed around with my finger again. And that was it. And then basically I was shooting straight down. You can see the camera lens right here. And that's the whole setup. And you can put anything you want underneath there for color. I just happened to print some random colors just to see how it came out. I thought it was kind of cool. It has kind of an interesting look. Then you can shoot with a CD-ROM. If you have a CD-ROM or a DVD, these have incredible color on them. Just spray a little water on one and photograph it. Really, really simple. This is the setup, my LED panel light. I have just a Corel plate here with and the only purpose of the Corel plate is because I didn't want to get my table wet, which frankly wouldn't have mattered. It's Formica. But I sprayed it with a little water, and you can see my little spray bottle here. And I photographed it. And the color from the CD-ROM is all kinds of color in there. You get a really interesting image. When you're shooting, especially in landscapes, your lens selection makes all the difference in the world. One of the biggest disadvantages we have as photographers are zoom lenses. And the reason for that is because we don't use our feet enough. We tend to just look at a subject, zoom in or out, and take the picture. But shooting at different focal lengths creates completely different images. So these are the, if you've ever been to Elizabeth Park in West Hartford, these arches. These are in Elizabeth Park. And I tried to shoot this so that the front arch was always the same size. So you can see that at the top, I shot with a 14 millimeter lens, then a 24, then a 50, 100, and a 200. And in every one of these images, the front arch is about the same size. That was my goal. But by looking at each one, they are completely different. Wide-angle lenses tend to expand perspective. Telephoto lenses tend to compress perspective. Because we get such differences, choosing your focal length makes all the difference in the world in an image you take. And moving your feet, getting closer, getting further away, depending on your focal length. Obviously, when I shot with a 200 millimeter lens, I had to be much further away from that front arch. When I shot with a 14, I was very close to it. So you can't always get closer or further away to your subject. But if you can, choosing your focal length makes all the difference in the world in the image you get. These are two images of the same flower, same dahlia, also taken in Elizabeth Park. And one was taken with a 300 millimeter lens on the left, and one was taken with a 14 millimeter lens. And they're very, very different images, even though the flower is pretty much the same in both. I tend to like shooting with wide-angle lenses and getting a nice low perspective. Black and white and monochrome is maybe the one thing you can do without doing anything, without taking a picture. You don't need to take a picture to do what I'm about to show you, because you already have pictures, and many of them are probably better in black and white. As a matter of fact, you probably have pictures that you maybe didn't care for, maybe thought weren't so great, but by converting them to black and white, they become a completely different image. I always like this image. I shot this down in Hamden, East Hamden, Connecticut, at the Trolley Museum. And I always like this image, but really the color is distracting in this. When we convert it to black and white, it has a much better feel to it, at least for me. The yellow of the trolley in the background was distracting. Without the color to distract us, it's a better image. Black and white typically works really well with textures. If we look at this image, it's kind of a nice image. I will call it a postcard image. But when we convert it to black and white, it has a much, much more emotional feel. We remove the distraction of color. Even colorful subjects can look really good in black and white. We tend to focus more on the texture when we see the black and white version of the tulip. I always like this image, but when I converted it to black and white, I liked it a lot more. Sometimes you'd have an image that is better off in sepia. This is it's a gas station museum. It's a very interesting place. And the image is nice, but in sepia, it just has a much nicer feel to it. You can try duotone. Duotone is a form of monochrome, but we're using two different colors, only two colors. In this image, we can convert it to black and white, and it's kind of nice in black and white, although I think I like the color version better. But in duotone, we actually convert it to two different tones. We give the highlights a warm tone and the shadows a cool tone. And by doing that, it gives it a completely different feel. So all of these things in monochrome, in duotone, in sepia, you can do these with your existing images. You don't even have to take another image. You'll find all kinds of images that you have that work better in black and white or monochrome. This next topic, same thing. you can do this with images you already have. Re-edit old images with a new eye. And have some fun while you're doing it. So, this is kind of a monochrome conversion, but it's a little more than just a monochrome conversion. This church looks kind of neat, but when we convert it to black and white and we darken the sky and we add this little puffy cloud, it just takes on a whole new meaning. Has a whole new look. So this is getting a little creative. It's again having fun with your images. When I took this image, this was taken in Denali, and when I saw this, one of the problems we have as human beings is that our eyes see, but I'm sorry, got that wrong. Our eyes look, but our brain sees. Our brain really restricts our vision horribly. And as photographers, it's the worst thing that can happen to us. And it's the hardest thing to get around. Well, I didn't get around it in this image. In this image, I saw the aspen trees in the center, and they were really gorgeous, and I really, really liked them. That's interesting. I'm not sure what was going on there. I saw names popping up in my image. I saw these nice yellow aspens. What I didn't see was that all the foliage, this was taken in September, so the foliage had color. All the foliage had the same tone as the tree, yellow. And when I saw this, I was all excited about it. I took it, I get it back, and I look at it and go, not so good. But then I started wondering, why did I take this in the first place? And I started realizing that really, if I had seen the yellows, I may not have taken it, but by playing around with it and highlighting what I saw, this is what I saw when I took it. It's not what my camera saw. It's what I saw. So basically, I converted this to show what I saw. The yellow aspens against the blue sky. I took this years ago in downtown Hartford. It's kind of a confusing image. I find it awfully confusing, actually. But when you convert this to black and white, and I did a little funky stuff with the sky, I turned the sky black and I gave it a little streak of light across it. It takes on a different feel. And I kind of like this version of the image much better. Zoo pictures. This is a relatively boring picture. It's kind of a nice picture of the ape, but you can see people. There's, somebody out of focus there. There's some people out of focus here. I took it through glass, and there's more glass over here, and you're seeing reflections on the glass. It's an okay picture, but a little bit of re-editing turns it into a portrait. By removing the distractions. You can colorize old photos in Photoshop. If you have old photos, you can scan them. If you don't recognize the resemblance, that's me, the little one. Photoshop has had neural filters since 2020, for 4 years now. I'll guess that 80% of all the Photoshop users don't know about neural filters. They're really cool. In the filters menu, you have filter, neural filters. And one of the neural filters is colorize. It will colorize a black and white image. And by just literally turning that on, it will colorize a black and white image. Now, one of the things I have fun doing is taking an image, converting it to black and white, and then colorizing it and getting different colors. Kind of a fun thing to do, to play around with. But in any event, this is the colorization. Now, there's a better tool to do this, but they charge, and that is palette.fm. And palette.fm is a way they have 21 different colorization filters, and you can try them all, and they basically charge you by the download. So you can try as many as you want on an image, and then when you download it, you buy, I think, a package of 10 images you can download or something like that. But they actually they do a better job than Photoshop does. But, Photoshop basically doesn't charge anything beyond your Creative Cloud subscription. You can also create composite images. Composite images are a lot of fun. And again, you already have the images. You can go back to your stock images that you've taken before and decide what goes with what. So in this case, I have 4 completely disparate images. They have nothing to do with each other. And I basically started off with the image at the top left, which is the Devil's Golf Course in Death Valley. It's not a very good image, but it's kind of interesting looking, of the Devil's Golf Course. And then I had a picture of the Milky Way taken in Nevada. And then I had at the top right a trolley in Milan, Italy. And then I had an old man walking in Jerusalem. And I combined them into one single image. And by taking elements of each, you could create your own composites, all kinds of composites. There's all kinds of ways you can combine images to create a brand new image. You can get creative with a strawberry. So this is a picture of the strawberry I took, the focus stacked strawberry I showed you earlier. And basically what I did is I created a strawberry 9 ways. So I basically took the strawberry and I applied various filters to it to create various different looks, and I combined them into one image, one composite image. In this case, I took this butterfly I took in Florida. I applied a filter in Topaz. I think it was Topaz, the original Topaz Studio, to its wings. I reversed it, put a new background on it, and put a little flower that I had taken from somewhere on the top, and just created a brand new image. Same here. This is an immature cattle egret I shot, and I basically created, I had a Milky Way picture from somewhere, made it black and white, put it in the background. I created the ocean out of just nothing in Photoshop using brushes, and created an image, and I applied a filter to the egret's wings to give it that kind of brushed look, I guess you could say. But a completely new image out of something that already existed. At least 2 images already existed here. You can complement your images with AI. In this case, I took this image of a bus in a desert. I expanded it a little bit, made it look like night, basically reduced the exposure, made the darks darker and the lights darker, gave it a night look, created a ghost in Midjourney with a white background, and I combined the 2 images using a multiply blend mode. The white background of the ghost disappears, and you only see anything that isn't white. And we have the nice combining of those 2 images. In this case, I have a sunset taken in Joshua Tree National Park. I created a man in a tuxedo, a woman in a red dress. I extracted them, and I put the man in the image, put the woman in the image. I put them both in the image. You can do all kinds of things with AI. You can create new backgrounds. A picture of myself and my wife at a bar. Here's a picture of Bourbon Street, Mardi Gras style, created with AI. And we create this. So AI can be a great adjunct to your fun with photography. Probably nothing you're going to submit into competition, but it definitely will add fun to your photography. You can combine images with AI in all kinds of ways. And in this case, I told AI, get very creative and combine these two photographs. These are both photographs I took. And it created this. Another form of photography you could move into, another technique, is high key and low key. High key and low key can save an image. So if we look at this image, it's a really fun image. It's an Alaskan sled dog image. It's okay. There's nothing special about it. But when we create it low key, his eyes really, really shine. We remove all the distractions. In this case, we have I took a picture of this child in a car. This was taken in San Diego. And I really love the picture, except the car was in a parking lot. There were cars all around, a lot of distractions. But by creating the high key image, we really just concentrate on our subject. And really only on the face. We can do intentional camera movement. If you've never tried it, it's a lot of fun. This is where you blur your images on purpose or with purpose. So here's an image I took of a tree, just a simple tree. And what I did is I shot it at about, I'm going to guess, maybe a 1/10 of a second shutter speed. And I just moved the camera vertically as I was shooting to blur it on purpose. It creates an interesting effect. Again, same type of effect. Each time you do it, you're going to get something completely different. This is one I happen to like a lot. It's a bunch of black-eyed daisies. I think they're black-eyed daisies. And basically just blurred it, and it gives it a really ethereal look.
That's interesting.
It's long.
Yeah, I'm not. It's got to be ending soon.
Yeah. You can shoot minimalist. This is where we shoot where our subject is obviously the subject, because there's almost nothing else in the image to be the subject. This is a tree I shot right outside of Zion National Park. This is an actual image. I didn't put the tree there. It's actually growing there. But it's minimalistic. Frog in a frog pond. Bullfrog. Minimalistic. It was taken midday, but you'd never know it. A black-tipped shark. This was actually taken from a pier. There were a lot of lights around the pier, so the water was well lit, and a black-tipped shark swam by. But it's minimalistic. We have him in the bottom corner of the image, swimming into the image, and there's nothing else to distract us. Another one of these green metallic bees. One of the excursions I've taken with my photography is infrared. It's a fabulous, fascinating way to shoot because you don't know what you're going to get. When you take a picture with infrared, you can't see it. Even though your camera can see it, you're going to see it in a way that doesn't look like the image you're going to end up with. So you're never sure what you're going to get. But infrared shoots in the infrared spectrum. You can actually shoot infrared with a non-converted camera. Any camera can shoot infrared. But the exposures will be long unless you convert the camera to infrared. Infrared is only black and white. In true infrared, there is no color. So this is a true infrared image, and it is black and white. This is the, I forget the homestead, one of the presidents, early presidents of the United States who lived in Vermont, Plymouth, Vermont. I can't remember his name now. And this is a barn on his homestead. But you can see what happens when you shoot infrared. Foliage comes out light colored. Clouds are exaggerated. You get really, really contrasty images. The barn is very contrasty. It has a great look. I love black and white infrared. You can also shoot what's called false color infrared. This is where you combine visible light with infrared. In the infrared spectrum, there is no color, but visible light obviously has color. So you can combine the two spectrums with certain kinds of filters and get these false color effects. This is another false color effect that emulates Kodak Aerochrome film. If you ever shot with that back in the 70s or 80s, Kodak Aerochrome film was pretty amazing, or even in the 50s or 60s, if you go back that far. This is a black and white infrared image. You can have your camera converted or a camera converted, or you can buy a converted camera, and then you just shoot with, you can shoot with a filter or without a filter, depending on the conversion, and you need to do a little processing in Photoshop, and you can get some really, really interesting results. If you shoot with a non-converted camera, your exposures will be 20 to 30 seconds long. You need a tripod, obviously, but you can do it without a conversion, without having to do a conversion. Panoramas are another way you can shoot, and panoramas are really interesting. You need to learn how to shoot a panorama. One of my early panoramas was this image. This was taken in Amboy, California, and it is obviously very distorted. And if you look at the ceiling, you can see it curved dramatically, and it's not curved dramatically. I didn't know how to shoot a panorama. I shot it wrong. We have this problem called parallax, a parallax issue here. And there's a way to shoot handheld. There's two ways you can shoot panoramas. One is handheld, one is on a tripod. If you're on a tripod, you can get a little device that's really inexpensive to help you do this. But you can shoot handheld. And if you shoot handheld, what you need to do is you need to learn to rotate your camera across the nodal point of the lens. The nodal point is the optical center of the lens. Sometimes it's called the no parallax point, but it's actually the optical center of the lens. The optical center could actually be in front of the lens. Computer designed lenses today can have the nodal point anywhere in front of the lens or somewhere within the lens. But if you rotate the camera around right here, which if you basically just hold the camera and twist your body and take the image, you're basically rotating it around the base of the camera. That's going to create an image like that. And that's what you don't want to do. So if you rotate around the middle of the lens, middle to the front, you're going to get a much better image. And the way you do that is you basically plant a foot, and you maybe move your left foot way over here. You take a picture. You move your left foot over here. You take another picture. You move it over here. You take another picture. And by doing that, you're actually moving around more closely to the nodal point. So if you're going to handhold, that's the way you want to do it. If you use a tripod, you're going to want to use a nodal rail. Nodal rails are very inexpensive, $20 or $30 is all they are. And they mount on your tripod. And basically what you do is you move it back and forth on the tripod. So you're moving your camera body back. And the idea is to get the nodal point of the lens over the center of the tripod. And when you do that, then you don't have that parallax problem. And you can basically turn the camera on the tripod head around and take your pictures. You basically have to calibrate it, and it's really easy to calibrate. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube that tell you how to do this. But once you know that, you kind of look at the scale and look at the numbers on the scale. And what I do is I have a little piece of paper attached to my top of the nodal rail, saying that with each lens, at which focal length, what number I need to be at. And basically, it's real easy to do. And once you do it, you create this little chart for yourself, and you just put it in the right place, and you're good to go. The interesting thing about shooting panoramas is that they have to be stitched. They have to be put together in software. And one of the ways, the way that software does it is they have to use a particular projection. And there's many different projections they can use. Photoshop only gives you 3 choices. Photoshop and Lightroom give you 3 choices for the projection. But it's not one of they don't have my favorite projection. My favorite projection is called a rectilinear projection. And you can't do that in Photoshop or Lightroom, although they have 3 others, and they're not bad. But there's the software I use is called PT GUI. It's kind of a weird name, PT GUI. It's a weird name, but it's really, really good panorama software. And what happens with a rectilinear projection is it basically takes each image and brings them together in a way that we lose part of the top of the image. So in this image, you can see the 7 images I took at the top here, and they get merged in a rectilinear fashion. And you can see the bridge is perfectly straight across. And then it gets cropped, and you end up with an image like this. So you always want to take more in your image than you need, because you're going to lose some of especially the top of your image. But panoramas can be wonderful. This is a handheld panorama. This is another handheld panorama. And this one was a really interesting story because in 2012, we went to Paris, and I had just bought a brand new do-it-all lens, a 28-300. And I said, this is the only lens I'm going to bring with me. I'm going to try and start bringing less equipment with me, 1 body and 1 lens. So I packed my body, I packed my lens. Well, what I didn't realize was my 105 millimeter macro lens was exactly the same physical size as the 28-300. So the only lens I ended up bringing with me is a 105 millimeter lens. So this picture of the Eiffel Tower is 5 different images stitched. This is a panorama. You can also do vertical panoramas. I did a lot of panoramas in this trip, shooting with only 105 millimeter lens. It was a good learning experience. You can pan. Panning is another technique that you can use that's really, really interesting. I love taking panning shots of bicycle riders. It's a great way to practice. And basically the technique is you use a slow shutter speed, maybe a 20th of a second. And the idea is that you want to keep the bicyclist or your subject in the frame, in the exact same place in the frame as you move the camera to track the subject. And by doing this, the background blurs and hopefully you keep the subject sharp. And you won't always get good images. Maybe you'll get maybe 1 in 10 images that come out the way you like. But when you get a good one, they're really nice. This was on a merry-go-round in Hartford. And this is just the opposite. This is a long exposure. Long exposures of moving subjects can make really interesting subjects. So, some things to think about. It's really important to master the physics of photography. Understand your apertures, your depth of field, what white balance is, all of the different physical attributes of photography, how a camera works. It's important to embrace failure because without it, you'll never learn and grow. You need to be open to change. Without change, there's no evolution. And maybe the most important one for me is shoot for yourself, not for competitions. One of the problems with competitions is you tend to learn to shoot for the judges. And you tend to shoot what the judges like, what they tend to like. It may not be what you like. You may like different images. Shoot for yourself. You'll get a lot more enjoyment out of photography, I guarantee you. Curiosity and experimentations are the keys to creativity. Draw inspiration from paintings, sculptures, cinema, literature, and music. Go to art museums, look at the masters' paintings, learn what they knew about light. It's amazing what you'll learn in an art museum looking at paintings. Learn from your mistakes and be willing to adapt. Embrace constructive feedback. You can gain inspiration from a number of places. As I said, going to an art museum is one of the best ways to gain inspiration and ideas about your photography. Check out photography exhibits. You can do that online and in person. Online photo forums are really useful. I happen to like 1x.com. 500px is another good one. Flickr, okay. Instagram, okay. Some of the other social media ones, not so great. 1x and 500px tend to be two of the better ones on the internet. Look at photographers' images that you admire. For instance, I really like Art Wolf. Art Wolf is maybe my favorite wildlife photographer. I love his images. Go into Google and do a search on, if I'm going to shoot owl pictures, I'm going to search for owl pictures by Art Wolf. And if you click on images, you get whole bunches of images. You get all kinds of ideas about what you can shoot. And look at what you like, what you don't like, get some ideas. But you can get a lot of inspiration by looking at really good images by really good photographers. Feedback is really important. An honest critique really is the only way you're going to see how your photography can improve. Get critiques from local photographers. Have a thick skin, because an honest critique can be critical, but it can be your best tool in your evolution. Check out members of your camera club. And I don't mean at meetings. I mean, get together outside of meetings. Critique each other's images. Participate in critique forums on online websites. Almost all of the online websites have critique forums. You can upload an image. You're going to get all kinds of feedback, some of it not so great. But some of it will give you good ideas. Remember, your evolution starts at the end of your comfort zone. Now, end with my favorite expression from Maya Angelou. You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. Okay. That's it. Thoughts?
Thank you. That was amazing.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Absolutely excellent. Thank you so much.
Has anybody tried any of these techniques?
I tried a few of them.
I've done quite a few.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the older we are, the more we've done, isn't it? Maybe
Right.
that's true.
No comment.
That's
Well-
interestingly, I have a picture, the same pictures that you took of Hartford from Elizabeth Park. I took the same picture, but in a misty weather when everything is kind of fogged in, and you can see the buildings just kind of sticking out of the fog.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's called Sunrise Point. It's in Elizabeth Park, and it's a great place to. There's one time a year, and I shot there once. If you go on to the Photographer's Ephemeris, which is a good website, or I think Google Earth, you can do it on Google Earth too. You can find out when a full moon rises right over the buildings in Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
And, from Sunrise Point, I think it's in October. I think it's this time of year is when it happens. It happens once a year. And you can get a really interesting picture of the moon, which I've done right over the city from Sunrise Point.
Yeah. That's a beautiful garden, by the way. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's one of our, we walk there frequently, and I just love the place.
Yeah. Well, I might see you over there one day. So.
Yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
A while ago, maybe a long time ago, photography was considered to be a visual image of reality.
A Xerox copy.
Well, okay. I accept your characterization. True or false? That is no longer true.
Not with AI.
Well,
Well, it's not just with AI, it's with everything that we talked about tonight.
yeah, in the very, very first permanent photograph was created in 1822. And a French photographer, wasn't a photographer, a French scientist, I'll call him, created an image with a camera obscura. The exposure was between 8 and 12 hours, and it was created on a pewter plate coated with bitumen. And from that point on until the early 20th century, almost 100 years later, the art community did not consider photography art. It wasn't considered a visual art until the early 20th century, 1910, 1915, somewhere around there. And it took 80 years for photography to become considered art, a visual art. And, I look at it and I say, what changed? And what changed was technique. Because in the early days, photography was literally a Xerox copy of reality, even though they didn't have Xerox machines. It was just literally a copy of real life as it exists exactly. Well, it wasn't until we started playing around with apertures and filters and printing on different papers and all of these different techniques that we had. You know, Ansel Adams pushed and pulled his processing. You know, he'd heat up his developer warmer temperature, a cooler temperature, do it longer or do it shorter to get a different result. And what he was doing is creating images that weren't Xerox copies.
But you had to be there. You had to be there to take the picture with AI. Unless you're an event photographer now, you don't need to be there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't talking AI, but I'm talking traditional photography. But yeah, with AI, yeah, that's all changing. And I will tell you this: that AI is not killing photography. What's killing photography right now, and it's doing it very well. Anybody want to guess?
iPhone.
What is it?
iPhone.
Nope.
No.
Smartphones.
What?
Smartphones.
Nope.
No.
It's video.
Yeah.
Still photography is going away. Nikon, Canon, Sony, the only features they're putting in their new cameras now are for video, because camera sales are down 94% from 2010. 94%. Who's buying cameras today? Okay. I'm going to say there's two classifications of people buying cameras today. One of them, I'm in that category.
Me too.
Okay. But there are not that many of us buying those cameras. The vast majority, I mean, and I do mean vast majority of people buying cameras today are content creators, YouTubers, TikTokers, people creating videos on YouTube and TikTok. These people are buying cameras all of a sudden in droves, and all the camera manufacturers can only are going head over heels to try and satisfy these people because they're the only ones buying cameras. Video is the new photography. Still pictures will never go away, but they're going away. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's happening. And
Well, even right now with AI, like I'm saying, unless you're an event photographer and you actually have to be at the event, like a wedding or something, what use is there for photographers anymore with AI?
well, and given that, wedding photographers aren't doing photography anymore. If
They're
you
doing
watch,
video.
if you look at PPA articles, they're all talking about transferring to video.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants still pictures of a wedding anymore. You want video. You know, they're going to show it. Nobody shows pictures anymore. You don't buy a picture. I used to be a wedding photographer. I used to create wedding albums. Nobody buys wedding albums anymore. All they want is to show it on their phones.
Yeah.
So video is great on the phones. So and stills aren't as good as video, so everybody wants video. So
But like
even
Ian was saying-
professional photographers have to go to video now because nobody wants stills anymore.
And like Ian was saying, now the smartphones have such good cameras and you can buy macro lenses and everything else for them. Like you're saying, that's why the sales has dropped in regular cameras, because why buy one?
Yeah, and one of the interesting thing is that I mentioned camera sales have dropped 94% since 2010, but they're starting an uptick. And the uptick, again, is content creators, because all the content creators started with smartphones. They started doing their videos on smartphones. And then they realized that, hey, there's some better cameras out there. And
A question for you, please. Forgive the interruption. I apologize. Is it the question that photography on the documentary side, whether it's a PBS documentary or your street fair documentary, is it that level of stills that's going away because people like seeing the moving image, or because those of us that border on art type photography, things that are more abstract, things that maybe not using artificial intelligence, but use composite or montage type work. Are we the market for that seems to still be strong, or am I wrong? I mean,
I
it's two
don't know.
different flavors.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, obviously there's a distinguishing factor between, documentary photography, i.e., e.g., event photography, and, fine art photography.
Yeah.
And, I have an expression I like to say is in art, there's no differentiation between real and fake. Okay, I mean, if somebody has a palette of paints and an easel in front of them with a stretched canvas, they can paint anything they want. Doesn't have to, it can be real, it can be fake. As photographers, initially it had to be real. And then in the 90s, Photoshop came out and basically said, you can do anything you want with your pictures now.
Well, to exception for the moment, I mean, Jerry Ullsman did no digital work. I mean, he had 8 enlargers in his darkroom, and it was all composite or montage work.
Well, it's just
however you flavor.
I mean, that's the old style Photoshop.
Yeah.
I
mean,
mean that's what we did. We did dodging and
Photoshop.
burning. We did, composites. We did all kinds of things, solarization. We did all kinds of things in the darkroom. But today we do it in Photoshop. And when Photoshop came out in the 90s, the kind of stuff we did in the darkroom was accepted, but Photoshop wasn't. Most photographers did not accept Photoshop in the 90s.
Yeah. I
today,
appreciate Photoshop is a wonderful thing for some of us who can't use the traditional darkroom. I have lung issues, so I can't deal with the chemicals.
Well,
So
I don't think anybody wants to
Photoshop for
deal with
me
the
is a
chemicals anymore.
godsend.
I mean, I can still smell the chemicals. I don't want to deal with that anymore. But AI is putting photographers out of business. Headshot photography is gone. Stock photography is gone. Fine art photography, it's still going to be there. But look up Jason Allen. Jason, Jason Allen, Allen, and he created a piece of art in Midjourney,
which is AI.
And it's an AI image, absolutely spectacular. And he's in a copyright battle right now because the Copyright Office won't give him copyright on it, and because it's AI. But it took him 612 iterations in Midjourney, 110 hours worth of work, and he also, including some work in Photoshop. And he is probably going to get it copyrightable eventually. It's going to be a big battle, and I don't know if he can afford it, but Copyright Office right now is between a rock and a hard place because no matter what they do is going to be wrong.
Yeah.
But take a look at this. It's theater, the opera. It's a French name, de spatial theater. It's the theater of space art. It's the title in English. But it's a spectacular image, absolutely spectacular. What people are creating in AI today is definitely art. And it's going to continue that way. And it will not be very long before AI is consumed photography in most respects. I mean, photography is always going to be there. You're still going to have event photographers.
Right.
Newspapers are going away. We know that. And what do we have? We have video. Kids today, where do they get their news? The Daily Show. They don't show pictures. They show video. Everything is video.
But with the copyright, I almost understand, because if if you go on AI, I could say I want a picture of a Chihuahua on a skateboard in Times Square. So it's somebody's Chihuahua picture. It's somebody else's.
No. It's nobody's Chihuahua picture.
Well, but I mean, it's a Chihuahua. So how do you own that? You don't, because none of it's yours.
Well, it's your prompt.
Mhm.
You told it what to do. I mean, it's you know, you can't compare it to a camera because, you know, we're on a totally different topic. I don't know how we got on AI tonight, but it
I know
happens
I
to
gotta
be,
wrap it up soon too, or I'm gonna lose everybody.
yeah.
I need to do my
Oh,
meeting after this.
okay,
So
yeah, let's wrap it up. We're off on a wild tangent
it's
here.
very interesting, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you,
all
everybody.
right. Well, thank you very much,
I hope
Bert.
you
That was
found
Thank
some,
you.
excellent.
something interesting
Very interesting.
out of tonight.
Thank
And,
Yes,
you.
we did.
Thank you
And
so
thank you
much.
for your time. I appreciate it.
Don, did you get the email?
I didn't look.
Okay, that's okay. If you didn't, I'll send it. I've been
I'll
having
reach out to you
trouble
if I
with-
didn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Take it.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks so much,
everyone.
Bert. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. If everybody else could stay on, I'll try quickly because I know it's been a long meeting.
Yeah.
Ian, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
I was just going to say if you don't mind, I'm gonna head off if you don't mind.
Yes,
And,
that's
Good
fine.
night.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'll see you
forgive
soon
Ian.
on. Take care.
Okay. Good night, guys.
Yeah, poor
Bye.
Ian. It's 2 o'clock in the morning there. Yeah.
3, 4, 5. Bye.
All right. I'm gonna go.
And
Just.
that's been great fun. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Ian.
Bye bye.
All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye. All right. So for everybody else, I hope you enjoyed the program. I know on myself, I got a lot of good ideas out of that. I do have just some things I wanted to go over. One is I wanted to mention the HCC handbook. So by now you should have received a copy. If you haven't, let me know. I just realized today by Heidi that my list was not the most up to date. So for the most part, I had people on there that should have been on there more than missing people, but I have gotten that straightened out today. So going forward, we should be in good shape. PSA forms. There's 11 people that, besides the new people, because I'm not counting them, I sent them a separate email. But for our members from last year and prior, there's 11 members that have to update their PSA forms. So the PSA form is good for a period of 3 years. I think we first sent them out to be signed around 2020. So a lot of them are expiring. I did renew several last year. If you do want to participate in the PSA competitions, then please sign and return that form if you got the email today. Again, there was only 11 folks on there. We did start the voting for the NECCC competition. It's the pictorial and the black and white. There's only 6. It's kind of weird because some photos have 6, some have 7 in a particular order. So I'm not sure why they don't all have the same number of votes, but even if you haven't submitted any photos to the competition, you can still go vote. And we encourage you to add your comments. And as Bert said, that's a good, it's good to provide comments and constructive criticism. And sometimes people have to have a little thick skin. So I tried to go in and put some comments today, tried to be nice. But if you could take the time, you don't even have to put the comments in at the same time you vote. So if you don't have time and you just want to get the votes in and recorded, you can do that. You can always go back and add your comments later. That's what I did, just to make sure my votes got in. The UCC show, that's going to run until October 25th, and the pickup date is October 28th between 10 and 12. So it's a very small window, only one day. If you can't pick up your pictures on that day, please coordinate with another member for them to pick up your photos so that they don't have to hassle us to pick up our photos. So again, October 28th between 10 and 12. For our November meeting, we're going to have another Zoom meeting, and it's a professional photographer. We've had him speak for us before, Luke Katz. He's going to do a critique of our photos. So he's going to be sending an email out. I don't know if it's coming through me or from him directly, but he's going to be requesting 1 or 2 photos from members. So I encourage you to pick 1 or 2 photos and send them in. And like I said, he's going to give a critique. He needs a little bit of time to do that because in some cases he's going to go in and maybe process the photo to show you what you can do with it. And he just needs sufficient time. So if he gives us a deadline of when to get the photos in, please adhere to that deadline so we're not sending him photos afterwards. We still need to schedule a program for January, February, and April. So the HCC committee is working on finding somebody. I'd like to do in person because we have many Zoom meetings scheduled already. And I just wanted to put it out there that the committee is still looking for a program director or coordinator to help us with this. And you're not going to be doing it solo, setting up our program, because the committee would be helping, but it would basically be somebody who could spearhead it and just follow up with, if you said that you would follow up with somebody, they would just follow up with you to make sure that you've done that and get a response and whatnot. So if there's anybody that's able to do that position, the program director, let me know. Heidi, I don't know if you're prepared to do a treasurer's report. Do you want to do one?
Yeah, I need 1 minute.
Okay, that's fine.
So
And then
basically, we
oh,
collected,
okay, yes.
yep, we collected $370 worth of dues since our last meeting. So at our last meeting, I reported that our unrestricted cash balance was $1,066.58 at 370, and it comes to $1,436.58. I haven't paid out any expenses. Don't forget to send me the info so I can pay Bert Sirkin for his presentation today.
Yeah, he'll send me a bill. So I'll forward that to you. And I think that's all I had. Laszlo, what is the topic of the month for the newsletter for the photos?
Well, it's called Blue Hour, and actually Bert had like a 5-minute segment on it, basically taking pictures shortly after sunset or shortly before sunrise. But, since, I was thinking about that, probably not too many of the members did that one or willing to get up early in the morning or go out later in the evening. So, you can just use your judgment and think outside of the box. And Blue Hour can be anything, if you are listening to the blues, in a coffee shop or whatever it is, and to taking a picture, that's fine. Or you got something with, some blue colors in it, that's gonna be fine. It's,
Okay.
anything related to blues.
So be creative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's it.
And
Yeah.
I think that's all I had on my agenda. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up?
Just if you haven't paid your dues yet, please send me a check since our next meeting is going to be a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, so our next in-person meeting is actually going to be the Christmas party, which is a Mardi Gras theme. So start getting your beads, collect your beads, and I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else. Yeah, nope. All right, and I won't keep you any longer because I know it's been a long meeting, so I appreciate it. We had a very good turnout, and thank you very much. It was good to see everybody.
All right. Good night,
right.
everyone.
All right, good night. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.